Welcome to part 2 of the interview with Jelvie Grech. And if you missed part 1, make sure you go back and have a look at that one and subscribe so we can stay in touch. And I hope you enjoy this part of the episode. I want to, you had mentioned to me your mum nearly died. Tell me about that time in the van.
So what happened was we had to basically escape our situation, our family situation.
This was when you got kicked out of that house that you thought you owned?
Yeah, so it was after that, just the situation went from bad to worse. Right. And my mum basically prepared for us, so for her, my brother and I, to get out of that situation. And, you know, she doesn't think she's very savvy or strategic, but she is the OG in terms of being strategic, right? For me anyway. So she had saved up all this money that my auntie in Australia had sent to her. She then went out to make our passports. And at that time, it costs a lot of money just to make passports. It's really not for people like us. So she had that, but she had to hide it with neighbours to make sure that, it wasn't found and we could actually still do what we needed to do. And that time, it was crucial. Like, we needed to get out that morning and we left. We just disappeared from where we lived. People thought aliens took us. It was that dramatic.
Wow.
So we were hiding away at a relative's house that's outside of Jakarta, outside of the city. And I remember they only had one single bed. So it was a couple, they only had one single bed, and that's where they put my mum because she started getting sick. So there was myself, I was 8, my brother was 4, and we really had no one else or nowhere else to go, but just kind of witness our mum getting worse and worse every day. And I remember trying to distract my brother because I didn't want him to, he didn't understand it, but he was really worried.
Mm.
So I remember every day we would walk around the village and there was this huge field with guava trees and we just pick guavas and we just eat them all day. And, I'll tell him stories and things like that to get his mind off mum. But then every time we'd come back home, we can see my mum, at one point she was not responsive at all. And the couple that, my relatives that we were staying in said, we need to get your mum to a doctor. And doctors were expensive too. And luckily there was a family friend who found out about it and her cousin's a doctor that my mum knows. And she's like, the issue now is transporting your mum to actually get to the doctor's office. Can't afford ambulance. So the village people basically found a van and they put a table, just like a dining table in the back of the van so she could lie on it. And here is my brother and I, we were just sitting on the floor of the van and it's driving and it's taking us to this doctor. And my brother turned to me and was like, if mum dies, what do we do? And I said, I have no idea.
Wow.
So I was just saying, God, just help us.
Yeah.
So we get to the doctor's. He was packed on his way out. And, we said, look, can you still see my mum? He's like, I've got to catch a plane now to go to Japan. Like, you nearly missed me. If you came like 5 minutes later, I would not be here. So he checked my mum and was like, she's got dengue fever. So he gave her all the medication. But it was just like the timing. I couldn't believe it. Even at that age, I was like, we literally just made it to see him. Otherwise, he would be at the airport. And I don't know what else we would do. And he was a very good doctor. So I just find in places or in situations where you think there's no way out, there's always a way out and it just comes at the perfect time. And sometimes you just got to go, you know what, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to surrender it all. And then that's when God comes and goes, all right, this is what we're doing. This is happening.
So where did that faith come from for you?
I think for me it was just, seeing my grandmother always going to this Chinese church when she's not Chinese, like things that don't make sense, it was happening around me. And I think, if we look at the bad side of life, a lot of things that were supposed to be good were represented to me as something bad. So relationships, marriage, that word love, I never really experienced that or seen my parents even experience that. But I always knew that there was, I guess, something good in life, and that's what I always hoped for. And I saw that also in my grandma. She always took the positive side of things. You know, she never came home and whinged about, oh, you know, I helped these couple give birth and all they could give me was a dozen eggs. Like, that's not going to pay the bills. She would actually tell them, no, keep the eggs and feed your kids. Keep the eggs and sell them. Like, and she'd be like struggling financially. You know, I told that story about when we had to pay the rent and she was crying because we just had no money and the landlord gave us till the next day. And it was like 4 or 5 in the morning and she said to my mum, let's just pray. And my mum at that time, she wasn't, you know, she grew up a Catholic. She was still learning about her faith. And they both prayed and then suddenly there's a knock at the door and it was my dad's cousin saying, hey, I've just flew in from the Netherlands. Your brother gave me some money, but if I didn't deliver it to you tonight, I won't be able to come back until another 2 weeks' time. So I thought I'll just drop by and drop this off for you. And that was just the right time because the next morning or later in a few hours, the landlord was coming to collect the rent. So all those things I learned about. And I'd listen and I'd look out for these, you know, opportunities where God really showed up. And for me, that was something that built my faith. And it kept showing up. Even today, keeps showing up.
So it sounds like for you, this faith was never about religion. It was something that was very real.
Yeah, it was very real. And I think the miracle itself is, you know, if you listen to all the situations that I've had to live through, the miracle is that I kept believing there was better, that there was hope, there was going to be good. So I never let go of that. But also in those situations, I always focus on what can I do as opposed to what am I not able to do, because that will just make you give up. So for me, it doesn't matter how difficult the situation is, I'll always kind of look at the big picture and say, hang on, there's things that I can do and there's things that I can learn whilst I wait for a solution. And that's what I tend to focus on.
So that would be, I was going to ask you, but I think you've just answered the question before I've even asked it. So if people were listening or watching, what would you tell them in terms of the hope? Yeah, because there's hopelessness.
Yeah.
But this was one thing for you, that it was always about having hope. So what do you tell people?
I think for me, it goes back to who created me. So, you know, you go back to that question of why am I even here? So it goes back to who created me and why. But also the who is really important, because if you understand who created you, you understand the power that comes with that and the possibilities. So for me, I think a lot of people are stuck because they're not aware of the possibilities. And, you know, I speak to a lot of people who are like, you know, I really want to do this, but I don't know how. And it's my job to actually say, you know, it's possible to do that. And this is how you do it because I've gone through it before.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that hope comes from this belief that life will always prevail, that good will always win. So I just hold on to that and that strengthens me.
So I'd love to understand, because stories shape people. We all have a story. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And that shapes who you are today. So if we fast forward now, you've come to Australia.
Yeah.
And at this point, do you know any English? Broken, maybe.
No English at all.
No English at all.
No English at all. So I remember watching a lot of American movies and TV shows, and I pretty much think all I know is not even thank you, but let's go. You know, a lot of those kind of action movies, like let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came to Australia and, you know, at this time we were really living with my mum's side of the family. Now, I was surprised that she was not Indonesian. So her family's not Indonesian either.
No.
So no one spoke the language that I knew.
Right.
Luckily, before we got to Australia, my mum did have to say goodbye to her father in East Timor. And in that 1 month, I picked up Tetum, which is the East Timorese language. So I could understand a little bit when I came here. And, you know, I found myself having to learn a whole different culture. You know, a lot of my mum's relatives spoke Hakka, which is a Chinese dialect as well. And that's how you show, I guess, sophistication. So if you only speak Tetum, they don't it's not highly regarded.
Right.
So there's like all these different society
Yes.
structure. So I had to learn that as well. And I remember just struggling, going, I don't know this family at all. They don't know me, and I don't know how to speak English. And I said to my auntie, look, I really need to learn how to speak English because I want to go back to school. I don't want to be behind. And she said, oh, don't learn from us. Like, our pronunciation is terrible. We speak survival English. It just gets us through. So I just said, I went to school and they put me in the English language centre, and I said to them, listen, I've got to translate. Like I had an interpreter. There was this grade 6 kid who was Indonesian. So I spoke to her through him, and he's like, look, she says she needs to translate for her parents, like for her mum, and she can't do that if she doesn't speak English. How long is it going to take her to be fluent in English going through this language centre? And they said, oh, it's going to take 6 months. And I panicked. I said, I don't have 6 months. I'm going to be behind in school. I can't translate for anyone. I'm going to be useless. So I said, look, I need to learn English in 3 months. And they said, that's impossible. I said, okay, I like impossibles. So I went home and I thought, how am I going to learn how to speak English in 3 months? And I thought, this is also Australian English. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm an outsider. I want to sound like a local. So then I started watching TV, and I thought, I watch Neighbours and I watch Home and Away. I'm like, that's a different accent to the American ones that I'm used to. And I'm like, these must be like locals.
Yes.
And, my relatives didn't know anything. They just know to go to work and come home and eat and sleep. So I had no one to guide me. So I had to figure it out by myself. So I asked my auntie to take me to the library. I borrowed like 50 picture books. Like, these are baby books, A for apple, all that sort of stuff. And I'm learning this by myself. I'm watching Neighbours, Home and Away every single day for 3 months. Like, that's a sacrifice in itself. Right. So then I just started mimicking people. And I started to figure, okay, so when they see each other, like, oh, good day, how's it going? And just trying to connect all these dots. And I'd watch Sale of the Century to learn my numbers.
Wow.
Right? To learn what items are called. Wheel of Fortune, just to spell. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out on myself. And through doing that, I actually became fluent. So they kicked me out of the language centre after 3 months. They're like, you're good to go.
No way.
So, and from that time, I'll have to translate, really important immigration documents, go into meetings and translate for my mom, all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's just like, what can I do whilst I wait?
And now you lead people.
Now I lead people.
Tell me about that.
Well, for me, I don't think I intentionally want to become a leader. And I think for me, it's about mentoring more than leading. Maybe that's my take on it. So, I do that for work. I manage HR systems, and I have teams that I'm mentoring or leading. And again, it's like, my priority is how do I develop them so they actually come out with more skills and more abilities than they had before they met me. So my question to them is, what would you like to learn, and how do I help you learn that? Where would you like to go, and how do I help you get there? So it's always about, how do I serve others? Because at one point someone did that for me, and that's how I got to where I am.
Yeah, wow. I have heard that from some entrepreneurs over the years, where they just say, if you make sure that the people around you are successful, then you'll automatically become successful, because that's how it works. So it worked for you.
Yeah, and that's really good to know. And, I was invited by a university to develop curriculum and also become a lecturer. Now, I don't even have a PhD. And for me, that's just a miracle in itself. And I remember telling my parents, and my dad was supportive, and my mum was like, what are you going to teach people? Because she'd always measure, I guess, my ability with what she's capable of. And what I love about my mum is, I came to a realization, I think, when I turned around 40. But when I was a teenager, she was always saying, you've got to be able to cook rice so someone will marry you. You've got to be able to cook meals and look after a home, so then you'll be a good wife and mother. And I used to be frustrated, because here I am trying to get an education, thinking about a career, trying to be independent, because I thought, I don't want to be stuck in a bad marriage and have to do that and still be unhappy. And I remember just always arguing with my mum going, don't you think I'm capable of doing more? And she would always like, no, you need to learn from me. So it really bothered me up to the point. So this was me as a teenager. And then I was 40 and I remember like jogging around near my house and I'm like, this is so frustrating. It still bothers me. So I went to see my mum and I said, Mum, you know, you raised me to be a homemaker and a mum, and that's fine. But didn't you think I was capable of more? And she's like, you've got it all wrong. It's not about what you were capable of, but it was the only thing I was capable of. So
Wow.
she goes, I don't see myself as a lecturer or as a businesswoman or a career woman. You know, I can't do any of that stuff. I can't teach you how to read a book or how to solve a problem, you know, in your workplace. All I could teach you was how do you cook rice? How do you make a meal?
Yeah.
How do you make a house comfortable? How do you clean? Because that's all I knew. And she's like, of course, I knew you were capable of so much more. I just couldn't meet you there because, you know, I'm just down here.
Yeah, wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, it makes me think a lot about, even in my workplace, you know, I come in, it's always at the point where I need to change everything. You know, I come in, I'm implementing new systems. And that conversation with my mum taught me that not everybody's ready or capable of learning new systems or changing the way they work to accommodate this new system that I'm implementing. So how do I meet them where they are? How do I make them understand that there's a big picture to it and they can be a huge part of it? So that's still something that I'm exploring. And I did a grad cert in mental health just to help me understand that. Because I wanted to contribute more, not just for the people who are, you know, drinking the Kool-Aid and like, yep, let's go along with it, but it's for the people who are hesitant, who are not sure, who are afraid of change. How do I help them?
So we talk about the past and, you know, the past, don't let the past define you. And certainly in your case, there were lots of tough times and negative things that happened, which you made sure that didn't define you. Yet you've just shared an example of how the past has defined you when you're relaying what your mum told you and I just met you where you were. And so what you're doing now is that's defining you in a way that you are now meeting the people where they're at. Because one of the things I was going to ask you is given your background, how do you then deal or mentor or lead the people that you're leading when they go through struggles?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important thing is to not discount their struggle. And I'll give you an example. So I was working at a skincare company and there was a bug in the office and all these girls were panicking. They were like, oh, there's a bug. Like, we can't work here right now. And I just went there and I took the bug and I put it outside.
Oh, is it a little bug?
Yeah, a little bug.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, how are you so calm? And I'm thinking, I've gone through so much worse than, you know, this little bug. But I can also understand why it's not something that they'd find comfortable. But I'm not going to go, oh, that was nothing. Like, you know, you guys are so afraid and all that sort of stuff. So it's really important not to discount what someone is going through because to me, maybe it's not a big deal because I've gone through worse. But to them, that is the worst they've been through. Like, this is their worst situation, their worst nightmare.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always going, all right, have I experienced something similar? How did I overcome it? But if I haven't, it's just talking about how do you overcome something that's tough, right? It's not about, oh, just deal with it. But it's actually going, all right, where am I at right now? And where do I want to be and how do I get there? But it's like also going, you know, have I come across this before? Sometimes I can identify it, like, you know, in one of the universities I teach, I'm teaching professionals. So these might be lawyers who want to have a career change and become a data analyst, for example. There's a lot of fear because being a lawyer is all they know. They've done it for like 20, 30 years. And suddenly I'm trying to get them to use, you know, a data analytics system or platform. And for them, that's just difficult. And so for me, it's just identifying, okay, where is that difficulty coming from? Is it from fear because you're suddenly doing something that's outside of your comfort zone? And actually just talking them through that to get them to identify that. And sometimes, you know, they're in denial. They're like, no, I'm a good learner. I can learn anything. But then they start complaining about the course materials. They start complaining about everything else. And that's when I say, you know what, I think you're just having a tough time trying to say goodbye to yourself as a lawyer, because sometimes they've been made redundant.
Yeah, yeah.
But I said the good thing is you've actually made a decision to learn something new, so you haven't given up on yourself. But we know that learning is different for everybody. So what does learning look like for you? And it's in those consultations that they realise, hang on, sometimes these challenges can be overcome just by letting go of fear. And they won't tell me anything until a month later I'll get an email from them or a phone call saying, hey, that conversation really changed my outlook. That conversation actually challenged me a lot, and I'm glad we had it. So sometimes it's just about talking through people's, discomfort and going, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're learning something completely different.
And
that's okay.
And I see this seed now that your grandfather sowed in the family and ultimately ended up with you. That is now continuing. And so there are fruits that are continuing and new seeds, further seeds that are being sown. I can certainly see that. I want to end this part of the discussion going back to the beginning. What would you tell that 7-year-old Jelvie today? No, what would you tell her?
I think about that a lot, actually. I think I would tell her, look, you're doing well. And I would tell her it all works out in the end. You're going to go through still some challenges, but you're going to learn so much from it all. You're going to learn to be even more resourceful than you already are. And you will definitely achieve everything you've dreamt of and more. So at this stage of my life now, I think I've had dreams of, I think my dream was for my family to have stability. And that's, I think, something that we've achieved. So my husband and I, we've been able to provide that for our children. So anything that comes after that to me is a bonus. All right. So where I am now, I'm in the bonus stage of blessings, I guess.
Yes.
You can call it that.
Yep.
So it doesn't faze me if things go right or wrong. It's like, hang on, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. And yeah, I still have dreams. I still have things that I'd like to come into fruition. But I'm at a point now where it's going to happen when it happens. All I'm doing is just working towards it. I'm doing what I can. But yeah, to that 7-year-old, I would say, you're going to have wishes and you're going to think about things and you will see them actually unfolding in your life. And it's so exciting. So just keep going.
How is that? I'm sort of getting towards the end, but I just got so many questions. How does your parenting?
Yeah.
What's your parenting like, given everything that you go through in terms of the kids now? Because we, first world problems.
Yeah.
How do you treat that?
I think it's important for my children to understand where this stability comes from. So, but not from the point of, do you know how lucky you are? When, I didn't even have food growing up, because I don't want them to experience
Which is
what
a
I
big card
experienced.
you could pull out, right?
Oh,
Which is just like, hey, don't complain.
Absolutely. But I'm so aware of not doing that. But for me, it's telling them the stories. I actually have a podcast that I record, and it's not for everybody. Like it's public, but the intention was for my children to have these stories. So the stories that I'm sharing with you, they're all in that podcast, because, they're going to go through some challenging times, and I wanted them to have a resource that they can go to going, geez, Mum went through this and she overcame that. So, I'll be okay. I just need to put in the work, and I just need to do what I can do. And that's the whole point of it, because I'm terrible at writing, right? I can't discipline myself, but speaking into like a microphone, it was easy for me.
Yeah.
So I decided that's what I wanted to do for my children, to leave something behind. So then they understand, hang on, this life that we have does not come out of nothing. It came out of, my parents doing this, their parents doing this, all the sacrifice. But I certainly don't want them to feel like they owe us anything.
So, we're happy to share that link if you're happy to do that. But this podcast is planned to prosper. It's about what does now the word prosperity mean to you?
I think to me, prosperity is having everything you need to live life to the full. I think that's a promise that is in the Bible. God wants us to actually live life to the full. But also to have the wisdom and discernment so that everything you set out to do leads to success. And to me, success is also comes with responsibility of being able to help others. Because what's the point if you can't share with others? So, to me, prosperity is something that obviously everybody is seeking, but not everybody understands what it means and the responsibility that comes with it and the obligations that come with it. So you can't be prosperous but not have room for others. I think that's where things fall down. When I watch both my grandfathers and, my grandmother and what they built, they built a foundation, but it wasn't strong because they didn't pass on that knowledge and they didn't pass on the intention. So for me and, for Steve and I and our kids, it's important for us to also pass down the intention. Why do we do what we do?
Yeah.
And, what is it for?
And a lot of people are looking for joy and happiness, and certainly my experience, and your experience has probably been the same, is when you invest in others, when you give to others, and it's not necessarily financially, right? Although that's a part of it.
Yeah.
But just your time and investing in people, then there's lots of joy in that. So that's being prosperous. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and to me, seeing people successful, I follow a lot of my students on LinkedIn and they share sometimes, I came in, I did my degree thinking I'm going to be a HR manager, but I learnt from Jelvie and she's got this career in HR systems and I've decided that's what I'm going to do. And they went on to do that. They got the job that they wanted. And to me, that brings me a lot of joy to see other people successful. I don't come from a point where I don't want people to be more successful than me. I tell my students, look, I'm going to teach you what I know because I want you to be better than me. I want you to go further than me because that would bring me so much happiness.
Yes.
And people are shocked by that because usually people gatekeep.
Yes.
And I'm so not a gatekeeper. Like sometimes I think, I wish I could share more with people what I've learnt because I feel like a lot of people can use that information. But I also know some people are not ready to transform their lives or to change it. It's what they want, but they're not willing to put in the effort to get there.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely something that brings me joy is just seeing people become prosperous. So you pass that on.
Well, today it's been a story of prosperity in my view because you've, little girl with comics and elastic bands and being resourceful and looking after her brother. Where's the brother today, by the way? What's?
He's in Melbourne, so he's married, and
does he ring you and say, sister, I need something, you looked after me, I need you to look after me again?
To be honest, I don't think he knows what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I think sometimes my mum will tell him and he goes, I didn't realise that.
Wow.
And, I'm not the type of you're lucky I did this. Like, I don't even think about it like that. I'm just thinking, geez, I wish I could do more for him.
Yes.
But, when you go through a childhood like that, everybody comes out of it, I guess, in their own way in terms of how they live their life. For me, I actually made a conscious decision to not let my past define me, and that's a choice you have to make every day. And I'm very blessed to have, a husband who understands and who does not actually look down on me in any way. He's very encouraging, and to me that's really the reason why I can do what I do now. But also just having the right people around you. But I'm also very conscious of not being dependent on people or situations. I kind of just go, all right, God, it's just me and you. Like, what's the next step? Because sometimes if you have too many dependencies, it can also slow you down. So for me, I don't want anyone else to be responsible for my happiness or my joy.
Yeah.
It's on me.
And what a great place to finish when, on that note, when we're talking about do not let the past define you. That's a key. And then have something that you believe in. For you, it's God, it's that Christian faith, which I absolutely love, and saying, well, this is what I've got. My hope is in you. My hope is in my faith in you, and therefore I'm not going to let the past define me. And what a great outlook for the future. So
Yep.
on that note, I really appreciate you coming in, telling us your story. There are so many gold nuggets there for us to be able to learn. I've learned, I'm encouraged, and I think that people are going to get a lot out of this one, Jelvie. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.